The situation in India is beyond heartbreaking. WHO is doing everything we can, providing critical equipment and supplies, including thousands of oxygen concentrators, prefabricated mobile field hospitals, and laboratory supplies.
You just heard World Health Organization Chief Tedros Ghebreyesus sounding the alarm over the record-breaking surge in cases in India. Oxygen supply running low, and the deluge of deaths has forced authorities to conduct mass cremations.
2 Filipinos residing in India have died due to COVID-19, with 20 more OFWs already infected with the virus. The Foreign Affairs Department has now recommended a ban on travelers coming from India.
And deaths in India continue to soar. And not only are hospitals overburdened, crematoriums have also been running out of space.
This forces India to cremate their dead in public makeshift spaces. Cherry Salazar has the big story.
Bodies wrapped in white sheet, carried on wooden planks left to burn. Plumes of smoke billowing from mass funeral pyres. This is now commonplace in India's capital, New Delhi. A picture of India's COVID-19 crisis. The deluge of deaths forced India to build makeshift facilities for mass cremation. The country has been battling a second wave of coronavirus cases since March. Official tally logs more than 17 million infections and more than 195,000 deaths. Data from the World Health Organization showed that more than a quarter of new COVID-19 cases worldwide over the past week came from India. The WHO calls the situation heartbreaking.
The situation in India is beyond heartbreaking. WHO is doing everything we can, providing critical equipment and supplies, including thousands of oxygen concentrators, prefabricated mobile field hospitals, and laboratory supplies.
The health sector struggles to cope. ICU beds remain fully occupied, and oxygen supplies run low. Oxygen Express trains carrying tankers are dispatched to hospitals facing shortages. And other countries including Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, US, and Singapore are sending aid. Philippine Ambassador to India Ramon Bagatsing Jr. says there are 2,000 Filipinos in India, less than 70 of whom are migrant workers. 2 OFWs have already died of COVID-19.
Last 48 hours, nakakuha kami ng balita na dalawa sa ating mga OFW, as I said, these are managerial level people that have passed away. We're doing everything we can to help out with the remains. Tutulungan ng ating mga kababayan dito.
Bagatsing adds, 20 Filipinos also tested positive for COVID-19.
Lahat sila confined, no? Isolated. And after the test, it turns out to be positive. They're isolated, and then we communicate through social media or cell phones, and then they just tell us what they need, and then we find a way to bring it to their doorsteps. Regular naman ang communication namin sa kanila at kung anong tulong ang kinakailangan nila. Dahil lockdown din dito ngayon, hindi rin makakalabas.
Following the Foreign Affairs Department's proposal, Malacanang is now imposing a travel ban on all travelers coming from India or those with travel history to India in the last 14 days. This will be implemented beginning Thursday, April 29 until May 14. Cherry Salazar, We Are One News.
How are Indians and Filipinos in India coping with the alarming situation? To give us a clearer picture, a kababayan will join us tonight for a conversation. Sarah G. Gelio, she resides in Gujarat. Sarah, welcome to The Big Story.
Hi, good afternoon from India. Hello.
First of all, how's your family? How's your situation there?
Dito naman sa Rishikesh, we're fine. Because this is away from the city. It's like 6 hours away from New Delhi. I'm actually a foreign tourist here, been here for a year, 2 months already.
Okay. But Sarah, maybe you could give us just some broad strokes, some clear idea. How did this happen? A few months ago, India had gotten its levels to something like less than 10,000 per day, new cases per day. Now, recent week, it was hitting 300, 350,000,
Yes.
1 million new cases over 3 days. What happened?
Yes. Actually, around December, January, February, March, na we're already seeing the bumababa na talaga yung cases, and then all of a sudden, we have no idea what happened. Biglang nag-surge, biglang na-boom, nag-spike yung cases, and basically parang naging complacent din kasi. So parang we're not really, some people are not really properly wearing their masks. And then social gatherings are happening around the country. And then recently here in the next town here, Kumela was happening. And it's the largest gathering in the world.
I mean, so in the meantime, what are the precautions and the guidelines being? I mean, we right now in the Philippines, we are, as you know, I mean, hovering around 10,000, less than 10,000 a day. This is already high for us. People cannot fathom what it looks like to have 300,000 new cases per day. What kinds of guidelines are and protocols are in place for that kind of a situation?
Yeah, so each state here has different curfew, lockdown rules. Like here in Uttarakhand, we only have curfew. So 7 p.m. to 5 a.m., that's curfew. Everything is closed, cannot go out. But during daytime, it's okay to go out, buy some food. Yeah, compared like in Delhi, what I know is that they have a 6-day complete lockdown, and then it got extended again. And then for precautions naman, because there are many things being circulated on social media from the doctors, from the hospitals here, how you can manage COVID at home if you're doing home isolation. And then they're also distributing some alcohol and then masks. So yeah, and then again, that you can just take Ayurvedic medicine for COVID.
Okay, maraming salamat, Sarah. That was Sarah Gigelio, a Filipino in India. New COVID-19 cases in India stayed above the 300,000 mark for the 6th straight day. Tonight's big number is 323,144. That's the number of new infections recorded in India over the past 24 hours alone. This shows a 10% drop from the number of cases reported the day before, but experts warn this could be a sign that the new wave of infections in the country is taking a toll on its testing efforts. Global COVID-19 cases now stand at 147.8 million.
These are the other big stories tonight. Sources say Metro Manila mayors favor the extension of MECQ for another 2 weeks, but with shorter curfew hours. With more hopefuls going community pantry hopping, organizers in Quezon City are now implementing uniform operating hours. And 1 died and 3 more were injured after an Air Force chopper crashed off the coast of Bohol. The details after the break.
Good evening, you're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. The move on whether or not to ease restrictions in the NCR Plus bubble still requires balancing between health and economy. But where do Metro Manila mayors stand on this question? Let's find out in this report by Marian Enriquez.
Metro Manila mayors have yet to disclose their stand on what NCR's quarantine classification should be come May. But according to a News 5 source from the Metro Manila Mayor's Council, the local executives lean towards a 2-week extension of MECQ. The difference? Curfew hours will be shortened from the current 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. For Marikina Mayor Marcy Chodoro, the economic impact of strict restrictions should be considered while ramping up healthcare capacity.
The data provided in the earlier meeting that NEDA had, if MECQ will be extended for a week, our economic costs in billions will be 66.5 and household income in billions will be 30.5. In terms of losses,
on One News, the Chiefs, Manila Mayor Isko Moreno said that while he's open to extending MECQ, it's best to look into reopening more small businesses like salons and barber shops.
Ibig sabihin, pwede naman ding MECQ pero medyo magbukas tayo ng ibang industriya kasi it will generate more jobs. Not to create more jobs, but to protect existing jobs na mag-function siya ulit because life and economy is at stake. And
lockdown extension would mean more closures and lost income.
We need to make sure that the systems are in place. But definitely, we need to put our people back to work.
But for the Octa Research Group, it's still too early to lift MECQ. Professor Guido David said that further decongest hospitals. The group warns of yet another increase in transmissions should classification be eased.
Where we're hoping na yung 2 weeks, kaya na ma-reduce down to 2,000 cases per day sa NCR. Pero malaking bagay na rin yan if we can drop it down to 2,000 cases per day.
To prevent a resurgence, the group says the government must enhance its testing, contact tracing, quarantine, and isolation procedures. For News 5, Marian Enriquez, we are One News.
To help decongest hospitals, the Health Department is developing a home care kit for mild and asymptomatic COVID-19 cases. The home care package will help outpatients monitor their condition. This contains preventive equipment such as face mask and alcohol. It also has monitoring equipment like thermometers and pulse oximeters. The kit also includes vitamins and paracetamol.
This is part of a complete process, not just the kit, but also there would be a system and a process where they will be guided on how to use these kits. They will also be navigated on what facility they would need at that certain status of their illness.
With the sprouting of community pantries comes the hoppers, or those who go to multiple pantries in a single day. To prevent that, organizers have now come up with a uniform and limited operating hours. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez will give us a front seat to the story.
Earlier this morning, hundreds lined up at this community pantry organized by private water concessionaire Maynilad. The line went long as expected, and at the end of it, I met Colin and his neighbors. Colin said they visit around 4 community pantries a day since last week.
Actually, may mga schedule kami. Sa umaga, tulad kahapon, simbahan sa UP.
He said the situation in the early morning is the easiest, but the succeeding ones, not so much, especially with cut-offs.
Alam mo, puhunan lang na community pantry. Tsaga talaga. Kahit ibinigay nila, may puhunan pa rin yung pagod, no?
Colin lost his job as a barber due to the pandemic. He is now reliant on government dole-out to pay off debt. And the pantries help him put food on the table.
Malaking tulong kasi nakakain na kami ng maayos, unlike before. Dati naubusan kami ng bigas eh. No? Ngayon, hindi na.
While the pantry's slogan states, kumuha ayon sa pangangailangan, magbigay batay sa kakayahan, Colin has no choice but to worry about the next few days. Since going pantry hopping, he has already bagged 15 kilos of rice and loads of other goods.
Ayan yun. Ito yung mga dilatang na ipon at saka mga noodles. Ayan. Actually, may namigay pa nga ng munggo. Ayan. Tsaka tuyok sa loob. Ayan. So, galing ayuda yan lahat. Ito yung pinila namin nung isang araw. So, ngayon, nilakuha natin sa Nawasa. Ito naman, no? Puro gulay. Wala nang bigas kasi tinanghaling tayo. Ayan.
To avoid community pantry hopping, organizers in Quezon City will now implement uniform operating hours from 7:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. This will also prevent senior citizens and PWDs from lining up at the heat of noon. But for people like Colin, this still means waking up early, making the most of limited hours, in an effort to live another day. I'm Pamela Vasquez and we are One News.
Time for our next look at some of the day's big stories. A Philippine Air Force helicopter crashed off the coastal town of Getafe in Bohol, leaving 1 dead and 3 others hurt. The identified fatality was found to be pilot Captain Aurelios Olano. The 3 who survived are now undergoing treatment in a medical facility in Talibon, Bohol. The Air Force will probe the crash. Solicitor General Jose Calide says that law-abiding citizens do not have to fear the anti-terror law. During the resumption of Supreme Court's oral arguments on the controversial measure, Calide said that the law is not an instrument of oppression, nor is it a tool to suppress the vibrance of the country's democracy. The Makati Prosecutor's Office has junked the criminal charge of rape with homicide against 11 men implicated in the death of Christine Becerra. Assistant Prosecutor Joan Bolina Santillan said they found no sufficient evidence to charge the men with rape. The 11 men were with Becerra at the City Garden Grand Hotel last January 1 when the flight attendant died. For the big story in sports, Kalei Mao won't make it to the national volleyball team tryouts as she is set to fly to Puerto Rico to be an import. She will play for the volleyball team at Changas de Naranjito in Puerto Rico before joining the F2 Logistics in the Premier Volleyball League. She remains committed to play for F2 in the upcoming season of the PVL, which is temporarily set to start in June. Time for another quick break. When we return, we go to Cebu for a look at the festivities celebrating 500 years since the victor at Mactan. And winter may have come, but are you ready for fire to reign? A spin-off of the Game of Thrones series will launch next year. The details after the break.
evening, I'm Robbie Alampay. You're still watching The Big Story. Festivities continue as Cebuanos commemorate the 500th year of the Battle of Mactan. What else is going on in this momentous celebration? Dale De Vera gives us updates from Cebu. Dale?
Robbie, as you can see right behind me, the Queen Centennial Dinner evening show is still ongoing. Yes, this is just one of the many events that were lined up since morning in celebration of the 500th anniversary of the heroism of Lapu-Lapu as he battled the forces of Ferdinand Magellan during the Battle of Mactan. This was followed by a military parade in honor of Lapu-Lapu. The design of the hero's new statue was also revealed earlier. Dr. Rene Escalante, the chairman of the National Historical Commission, said that they want Filipinos to remember Lapu-Lapu as a hero who defended the country against foreign invaders. The commission has also been in talks with Congress to rename the current Mactan Airport to Lapu-Lapu Airport. The National Quincentennial Committee says this will emphasize the transcending spirit of heroism, gallantry, and bravery of Filipinos in the last 500 years. Since Lapu-Lapu and the warriors of Mactan dismantled the foreign intrusion to local order by Ferdinand Magellan. Here's what Dr. Escalante has to say.
We are expecting that every time we hear the word Lapu-Lapu in the coming days, what will come into our mind is the historic leader of Mactan, who defended our country against the invaders.
Robbie, the festivity is set to end with the lighting of the historical landmarks, including iconic landmarks here in the Cebu province. It includes the Cebu-Cordova Link Expressway as the bridge, which has been tagged as the Bridge of Tomorrow. The crosses of the bridge were lighted 2 weeks ago, just in time for the celebration of the 500th years of Christianity in the country. Robbie?
Let's take a look at the biggest stories on print and online. From the Philippine Star, following the Philippine Coast Guard's maritime drills in the West Philippine Sea, the Chinese government insists it has jurisdiction over the area. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin said China enjoys sovereignty over Spratlys, Pag-asa Island, and Scarborough Shoal, as well as their adjacent waters. Wang has called on Philippine authorities to respect China's supposed sovereignty. Business World reports San Miguel Corporation eyes to operate a bus rapid transit or BRT system on its newly opened Skyway Stage 3. The BRT system will be from Susana Heights in Muntinlupa to Balintawak towards NLEX. The conglomerate is now working on the proposal. And this from News 5, meat and pork prices in Metro Manila have soared to 59%. This is according to NEDA Secretary Carl Chua. This is a soaring increase from last year's 1%. Chua says the figures were supposed to be released by May, but he disclosed them in the Senate hearing today to convince the Senate that Executive Order 128 is necessary. The EO seeks to lower tariffs for pork imports.
Last year, with as low as 1% inflation for meat and pork. Today, we are seeing in Metro Manila 59% inflation.
And here are the other big stories from around the world. The U.S. will start sharing up to 60 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine with other countries in the next few weeks. The White House announced that the United States will release vaccines to other countries as they become available. They said there could be 10 million doses cleared for export in the coming weeks. Some 50 million more doses are currently being produced and could be shipped by May or June. Have you looked outside your window to witness the pink supermoon? The first supermoon of the year is shining over the Philippines tonight after dazzling night skies across the globe. A supermoon refers to the full moon when the satellite is closest to Earth. NASA named this year's supermoon a pink supermoon. It's named after an American plant that blooms in spring. The pink supermoon has been sighted in many regions across the world, like Latin America and Europe.
Fire will rain. That's the promise to Throners in the upcoming Game of Thrones prequel series, House of the Dragon. Before the big reveal, GOT's Twitter has dropped several hints, including a series of fire emoji tweets and GIF images with fire elements. House of the Dragon of Daenerys, first of her name, the Unburnt, Queen of the Andals, and the First Men, Khaleesi of the Great Grass Sea, Breaker of Chains, and Mother of Dragons. For News 5, MJ Marfori, we are One News.
As we commemorate 500 years of the victory in Mactan, a public official had a bit of confusion as to who really won the battle. In a now-deleted post, Cavite Vice Governor Jolo Revilla paid tribute to Magellan for his valor and sacrifice. Netizens were quick to notice the error, even poking fun at the mistake. Revilla did apologize on Twitter. He said an intern was supposedly responsible for the gaffe. Just to be clear, it was Lapu-Lapu, as we all know, who defeated Magellan. He was in charge of and Magellan was the one who was in charge of Spanish forces who landed in Cebu.
I can understand the stress of Jolo kasi pandemic ngayon, dami natin iniisip eh.
But it also emphasizes, it's a shame because of the pandemic, it's really overshadowed all of our celebrations. This is supposed to be a very big year to celebrate 500 years and really, of course, very important part of our history.
I was watching Dale De Vera's report a while ago. Nainggit ako, sabi ko nakakamiss naman mag-live events. Soon, sana we will have that here. But for that to happen, we have to cooperate, wash our hands, and then wear our face shields and face masks. Well, that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News, for more in-depth analysis. Visit our webpage, onenews.ph. Mask on!
Again, wash hands!
And stay safe, Philippines! I'm Robbie Alampay. Sorry po!
I'm Gretchen Hall. We are One News. Have a good evening.